And welcome back. This is going to be a review of what we've covered so far and a reminder of using your notebook and your workbook to get some of this stuff down on paper. So, as a reminder, the 5 stages of retirement are only five because so many people forget to do the first two at the beginning and then they have to repeat. So, step number one is going to be your pre retirement. And that's actually designed to happen before you go into retirement. So, the pre retirement is when you get yourself into the mindset, okay, I got a plan for retirement. What's it going to look like? Not the money part as much as the activity part, how to stay moving, how to avoid being bored, how to avoid the aging process. That's so critical. How to do all the things that you've always wanted to do, but maybe you never had the opportunity or the time to be able to do that. This is your choice to distinguish the difference between wealth and frustration, isolation and healthy relationships. Full retirement is when you're able to appreciate what you have. It doesn't mean that you're living as a billionaire for the rest of your life at all. It means, as we know, and if you listen to the podcast, Can Money Buy Happiness? You realize that money actually has the ability to enhance your capability of being happy, experiencing joy and well-being to the level you're already happy. In other words, if you're not a happy person to begin with, if things aren't going well for you and they never have, or you're playing in the victim trap, no amount of money is going to help you. You're going to have to get some sort of professional help or figure out how to get rid of these false narratives inside of you that are holding you down. So, full retirement means that you're actually living your second half of life to its fullest. The third step is disenchantment when you realize you're not. It's not not going the way you want it to go. So you're disillusioned, if you will. Unmet expectations is kind of what it's all made up of, and so you want to be able to first be aware that that's going to happen to you if you don't do the first part, which is the preparation aspect of pre-retirement. Now you might say, okay, look at I'm already in retirement and I'm already at step three, moving on to the step four. What do I do now? Well, go back and use this workbook. It's really helpful to move forward, just to orient yourself, right? Because I'll just click that right now so you can see reorientation is the fourth step. Well, if you're in disenchantment, you want to figure out how not to make the same mistakes over again, right? So we know the definition of insanity. We don't want to do that. We want to go through and do it differently. Don't try harder, try different. And that's where reorientation comes in. Remember Gary Brecka's quote of aging is the aggressive avoidance of discomfort. Well, this is uncomfortable to go through a process like this. I mean, I got two workbooks sitting right in front of me to reference as I try to explain to my best I can how to better prepare yourself to move into what we call a full retirement. And ultimately, we're going to move to what's called reconciliation and stability. Basically, it's step two over again, but doing it right this time. We've done it different. We haven't tried harder, we've done it different. Just as a side note, one of the biggest challenges folks have when they get to those retirement years is, and you've seen this with your parents as they started aging, they tend to get softer, right? Well, that softer means they've acquired greater skills inside the emotional intelligence or social skills. That's what full retirement's really going to be about. The money will take care of itself. You don't have to have a tremendous amount of money to be happy in retirement. What you want to do is to get into acceptance of who you are and develop those relationships with your family and your loved ones and your friends and your hobbies and your passions. That's full retirement. That's kind of where we're going for. Okay, the next one that we want to cover is to understand um, why Richard Rohr's comment is so powerful to you. So he says there are two halves in life. a first half and a second half. You cannot live the second half of life using what you always did from when you were a kid and when you were in your 20s and 30s and 40s. In other words, your family of origins dysfunctions are going to come back and bite you in retirement the same way they did during life. Now, you probably were so busy during life that maybe you didn't quite pick up or were aware of some of the challenges that you had, or maybe you were aware but didn't know what to do about them. Retirement's a wonderful time to start rebuilding the skill set that maybe you wish you had learned earlier, or maybe that you wish someone had taught you earlier. For what it's worth, in my life, I came from a very dysfunctional family. I was struggling to figure out who I was, let alone what purpose I had to serve in life. And then again, I couldn't believe that my wife would even want to marry me. I just don't understand what she saw in me that I didn't see in me. In other words, my family of origin gave me certain challenges that were perfect. They were exactly what I needed to learn, to grow, to understand. Well, in the late 1990s, Daniel Goleman came out with a book called Emotional Intelligence. And since then, a tremendous amount of research has been conducted. I did my PhD dissertation on emotional intelligence and maladaptive behavior. So the idea here is we now have this information that we did not have when we were younger. Hence, I wish I had known this earlier type comments come out a lot. So the idea is now is the time. You have the time. And if you have the will and the desire to develop this deep relationship with your loved ones, you get to practice that. Remember, having that ability to connect with grandchildren and great grandchildren and children, let alone that. And I cover this a lot in my podcast where I explain that too often we guilt leverage and we shame base our loved ones to come visit us. Gosh, it doesn't work. And it's miserable for them, and it's not very fun for us when we're the ones trying to guilt leverage. All right. So we cover this, and this is in your workbook. And so I recommend that you go to the workbook. It's an answer booklet. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's a small picture, but the answer workbook, right inside the first cover, and it asks you, what is money? And so we talked about that and the difference between money and the difference between wealth. Please realize there is a significant difference, and we're semantically defining that way on purpose. And the reason we're semantically defining that way is because too many people use the term wealth advisor. Well, no, they're not in this term. If wealth just means money, then that's an accurate concept. But money really is just a commodity. It's a means to an end. It's to be controlled and owned, not the other way around. Because if you're moving into your retirement days and you're still working a lot, or you still got rentals and you're still doing all the repairs, but you have plenty of money to cover for that to be done, I'm arguing you're missing a key aspect. So it's what you don't know that will actually hurt you. So what you don't know that isn't so is the problem. You might say, well, I love doing this, and that might be true. But your deeper happiness isn't going to come with repairing your apartment complex microwave or the toilet or the dishwasher. Where it's going to come is connecting with friends and family and loved ones and grandchildren. That's where it's going to be cool. So what is wealth then? Wealth is having enough of time, healthy relationships, hobbies, passions, skills, and money. So what I want you to do is to go to your workbook. Remember to go fill out those answers. What is money? What is wealth? What is wealth to you? So what does it mean to have those relationships? And how are you going to address that? How are you going to get there? Now's the time to start planning that. So that's also found inside your workbook. So how are you going to achieve wealth in your lifetime? And this is a reminder too. This is just a review. The transition. If you want a recipe for unhappiness, spend your time just on money with your rentals, watching your assets, your stock returns, the stock market. So if I'm speaking to the DIY guy right here, or the DIY guy's wife, I know I'm stereotyping, but that's typically how it is. Where is the connect time? Remember, and I've mentioned this earlier before, having a post-mortem to-do list found in a safe about how to take care of finances is not an act of love. The act of love is doing it during living, during your lifetime. So both partners, both spouses know what's going on. If one of you is really good at the money, it really is incumbent upon you to make sure the other person knows what's going on. But therein lies the idea of connecting again. So moving forward, if all you do is spend time on your hobbies that are money driven, relationships will deteriorate. And then we talked about the first half and the second half, the critical aspect of taking your first half of life and learning from it, and then using your second half of life to learn the skills that you didn't learn in the first half of life. Then go into your workbook, answer the question, what is your most difficult transition from your first half of life? And that is going to be found in your workbook that you can answer that, and a great conversation piece for both of you to have. Now, in the next video, we're going to cover the 7 transition steps moving into retirement. Every one of them will play a significant role in your preparation. So this is basically step 1 from earlier, where we talked about the 5 steps that you only need to do 2 of them. You don't need to do all 5. This is how you avoid going into that disillusionment stage. All right, so get your workbook, make sure you filled those answers out, and we'll talk to you again in the next video. Thanks so much.